Welcome back, everybody. Today we are going to be going over the pros and cons of living in cool California. Now, this is a really small place, which probably a lot of you have never heard of, but you're going to be really excited to hear about it. It is a really, and no pun intended, cool place to live. I'm going to be going through the pros and cons for you, so by the end of this video, you'll know whether cool California is the right place for your family or not. Starting with pro number one, which is home affordability. Like I said, the first pro of living in cool California is home affordability. This is a relatively affordable place to live for the foothills, with a median home price as of the recording of this video in the winter of 2024 of $535,000. And that gets you a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,900 square foot house on a couple of acres or more. Now, I know sometimes it seems a little crazy to say that over a $500,000 home is affordable, but by contrast, just 35 minutes to the south, the town of Placerville has a median home price of $505,000, which is less than cool, but what you're getting in Placerville for that is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,700 square foot house, usually on around 2/10 of an acre, maybe a half of an acre tops. So if you're looking for homes on acreage, cool is really affordable. A lot of the homes are going to be on 5 and 10 acre lots out there, with the exception of one community we'll talk about, Auburn Lake Trails. But the rest are going to be on 5s and 10s. And if you look at other communities like that, like say Shingle Springs, California, they're going to have a median home price of $749,000 for a very similar home size and acreage layout. So if you are looking for horse property, if you are looking for a lot of acreage around you, then cool is a very affordable place to get that kind of property. Look, by this point in the video, you're probably wondering who I am and why you should be listening to me about real estate, cool California, or anything at all, really, and it's a fair question. My name is Rich Curtis with eXp Realty, and I've been selling homes here in the foothills for nearly 20 years, in markets ranging from the Great Recession to the COVID market insanity and everything in between. My goal with this channel is to help you make the highest quality real estate decisions you can from the comfort of your couch. So to that end, let's jump right back into the pros and cons of living in cool California so we can see if cool is right for your family. Pro number two of living in cool California is it actually has an amazing amount of community infrastructure for a tiny rural town. So let's start with where this place is so you can get a sense of how far out it is. And it's one of these places that is sort of equally as far away from everything as it is close to everything, because it's kind of out in the middle. It's about 35 minutes north of the town of Placerville and 35 minutes north of Highway 50, and about 17 minutes drive south of Highway 80 and the town of Auburn. So from cool, you can pretty easily access Highway 50 or Highway 80 to get down to Sacramento or up to Tahoe on either freeway that you want. But it is kind of out in the middle, the kind of place where there usually isn't a lot of community infrastructure. But cool has a great grocery store in the holiday market. I mean, literally, other than Costco, you're gonna get everything you need at the holiday market. You have the cool beer works, you have the pizza place, the burger place, a gas station, you have a feed store, you have pretty much everything you need right there in cool to get through all of your daily living, and some great restaurants to go out and have a night on the town without ever leaving town. So when it comes to far-flung rural places, cool has done an amazing job both growing, creating, and the community sustaining this infrastructure so you don't have to go far out of town to get stuff done or to have a good time. Pro number three of living in cool California is Auburn Lake Trails. Now, for a small subset of you, this one might actually be a con, and I'll explain that at the end of this section. But for now, what is Auburn Lake Trails? It's a 3,600 acre gated community with 1,104 buildable lots in it. The lots range in size from 3/10 of an acre all the way up to 14 acres. It was built out in the mid-70s, and it was planning on there being a large lake out the back door. At the time, they were going to dam the Middle Fork and North Fork of the American rivers, and it was going to build up a huge lake, and that would have been the lake in Auburn Lake Trails. And that lake would have spanned from the Auburn side of the ravine to the cool side of the ravine, bridging that gap, which is why it makes sense to have the name Auburn in a subdivision in cool. Now, for lots of reasons, not the least of which being that they had planned to build that dam on a giant fault line, the dam never came to fruition. And in fact, that project has been completely killed. So don't anticipate having the lake in the back of Auburn Lake Trails anytime soon. But the trails part is still there, and it is a significant benefit to this community. The community was built out with an incredible infrastructure of equestrian trails. And of course, it's not just for horses. You can mountain bike and hike on the trails as well. And you can access these trails from most streets or most houses in the community. These trails connect back out to the Middle Fork Canyon, right onto the Western States 100 Trail, also known as the Tevis Cup Trail, which is a 100-mile foot race and a 100-mile equestrian race, respectively. And this is a 100-mile trail system all the way going up to Tahoe, California. So you can get on your horse or on your feet right out of your home in Auburn Lake Trails and hike, mountain bike, or ride a horse 100 miles all the way to Tahoe from there if you like. So there's enough trails to keep you busy forever in there. Auburn Lake Trails also has a ton of community infrastructure. We're talking community libraries, a golf course, swimming pools, 2 stocked bass ponds where you can go fishing, basketball courts, tennis courts, volleyball courts sprinkled all over the place in addition to the trail system, and even barns and horse boarding facilities right there on site. So if you buy one of the smaller acreage lots, but you still want to have horses and access the trail system, you can do that by paying for boarding right there in the community that you live. If you're a horse person, one of the great things about living in Auburn Lake Trails is not having to trailer your horse. You can just get right on and go. So this is an incredible community with incredible community infrastructure at really reasonable prices, and there are a lot of people in there. Now they also have big community events, things like, you know, the Easter egg hunt, which I have family who lives in Auburn Lake Trail, so my kids have gone to the Easter egg hunt several times, and it's great, and tons of other community events in there. It really is a great place to live. So why did I say this might be a con for some of you? Well, the only con to this is it is a gated community with an HOA. Now, if you're like me, philosophically, I hate the idea of spending $500,000 on real estate and having a group of 7 or 8 people be able to tell me what I can and can't do with that investment. So I don't particularly like living in HOAs. Like I said, I've got a brother that lives in Auburn Lake Trails, and he loves it. Has no problem with the HOA. He loves the trails. He loves the amenities. He loves being able to exercise right outside of his house, has lots of friends in the communities, and really wouldn't live anywhere else now in the foothills. So the HOA, that could be a pro or a con depending on who you are and how you think. But as a community, it doesn't get much better than Auburn Lake Trails, and it's a huge benefit of living in cool California. All right, this is the point in the video where I ask you for a small favor. It's come to my attention looking at the back-end analytics of this whole thing that almost 90% of you who are watching these videos and getting value out of them are not yet subscribers to the channel. So I'd like to invite you to hit the like button, click subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss another video with crucial information to help you pick where you want to live in the foothills with your family. Subscribing is always free. You can cancel at any time, and it goes a long way to helping the channel and helping the YouTube algorithms pick which videos they show to other people like you looking to relocate to our beautiful little community. Now, back to the pros and cons of living in cool California so we can see if it's the right place for your family. Criteria number 4 of living in cool California is recreation. Now look, we just talked about Auburn Lake Trails in the last section. If you live in Auburn Lake Trails, I listed out a ton of recreational opportunities that are available to you, but it's not just those. There are public options as well. There are extensive trail systems in the Olmsted Loop area and out Rattlesnake Bar where you can go out and mountain bike, hike, and ride your horses and just have a great time. Down Rattlesnake Bar Road or down Salmon Falls Road, you have access to Folsom Lake and to the South Fork of the American River. for motorized boating, non-motorized boating, mountain biking, hiking, and just splashing and playing and cooling off in the summertime. It's really great. You're right next door, essentially, with a 10-minute drive to Coloma and Lotus. If you're interested in that, you can check out our pros and cons of living in Coloma and Lotus video, but there's extensive hiking, mountain biking, whitewater rafting, kayaking, even paragliding right there in Coloma and Lotus that you have access to as well. You can get public access to the trail system I talked about, not the one inside Auburn Lake Trails, but the Tevis Cup Western States 100 Trail. You can get public access to that and head on up to your heart's content as far as you want to go towards Tahoe as well. At the bottom of the canyon, when you drive from Cool out to Auburn, California, which is just a 17-minute drive to get onto Highway 80, you will go down to the bottom of the canyon to the river and come back up. Once you hit the bottom, there's an extensive trail system from there, and then heading out towards Forest Hill even, there are mountain bike trails that are on the mountain bike competitive circuit out there. It really is a mountain biking mecca down there, and a great place to splash and cool off in the summer as well. So there is no end to recreation living in Cool. It really is an outdoor recreation paradise. Pro number 5, and the last pro on our list today of living in Cool, California, is community. Now, I don't know where you're all coming from. A lot of our people come from the San Francisco Bay Area or the LA area when moving up here, and community is just a little different up here than you may have experienced back home. This is a small rural town. This is the kind of place where everybody knows everybody. If you go to the grocery store, you're gonna run into somebody you know and end up chit-chatting for a half an hour. If you're at the gas station, you're gonna run into somebody you know. If you're out for a beer at the Cool Beer Works, you're gonna run into somebody that you know and have some conversations and some social interactions. If you're broken down on the side of the road, the person that pulls over to check if you're okay might be a neighbor or somebody that you know. So while Cool doesn't have a lot of big community events, like say up in Placerville where there's Christmas parades and classic car shows and wine and beer fest and that sort of thing on Main Street, well, it doesn't have that sort of thing. What it does have is a tight-knit community of residents who take care of each other. If you're driving down the road and there's a bunch of goats running around the road, this has happened to me on several occasions, it's probably one of your neighbors, and people pull over and help them get the animals back in behind the fence. It's just that sort of place. Now, for a lot of you, this is going to be a pro. This is something you've been looking for maybe your whole lives. And for some of you who like to hide out and be anonymous, maybe it's a con for you, but it is something you need to know. And for me, I consider it a pro to live in a community where there's a lot of people who are all looking out for each other. All right, you can tell from the pros list and how I talk about this town that I think it's a pretty awesome place to live. But look, no town is perfect. And even though I think Cool California represents some of the very best of what Northern California towns have to offer, there's always going to be some things that aren't great about living there and some things that might be a deal breaker for your family. So to really make sure that whether or not Cool is the right place for your family, let's go over some of the cons so you can make sure there's not a deal breaker on that list. Starting with con number 1, which is heat. Like I said, con number 1 of living in Cool California is heat. It's hot down there. It's around 1,000 feet above sea level in the greater Sacramento area, if you will. And as such, it is hot. Like 90s most of the summer, hot, and triple digits for a good chunk of time. Hot. If you don't like hot summers, Cool California is not the place for you. Now, luckily, you have a lot of places to go to cool off in the summer. You can go down to the Confluence, that place I was talking about, where you're driving to Auburn and you get to the bottom where two rivers come together and splash around in the river and cool off. You can go down to Coloma and Lotus, where you can hop into the South Fork of the American River and splash and cool off. Of course, be careful. These are whitewater rivers, and you need to know what you're doing so that you don't get swept downstream. But there are great little swimming holes in all these places to cool off during the summer. If you buy in Auburn Lake Trails, of course, you have the swimming pools with the community that you can use to cool off. And Folsom Lake isn't that far, as I say, down Salmon Falls Road, down Rattlesnake Bar Road, or just driving down to Folsom itself. And in Folsom, you have not just Folsom Lake, you have Lake Natoma. So there are a lot of places to go to cool off in the summer. And if you like to recreate and not be in water and be cooler in the summer, you can always hop on Highway 50 or Highway 80 and head east up to higher elevations to cool off in the summer. But no matter how you slice it, Cool is a hot place to live, and if you don't like hot summers, it's probably not going to be the right place for you and your family. Look, if by the end of this video you still aren't sure if Cool is right for you, or you want to check out some of the other towns in the area and you just need a little help and direction to figure out where might be a great place for your family, feel free to reach out to me via the contact information on your screen or in the description down below. Like I said, I've been selling homes here for nearly 20 years and I've helped hundreds of families just like yours decide where to land in Dorado County, and I'm always happy to help. All right, now back to the pros and cons of living in Cool, California. Con number 2 of living in Cool, California is rural traffic. And this is kind of a funny one. That's why I'm giggling even saying it, because it's something that over the years, as my clients move from other places, they're kind of baffled by this one. And I get a lot of comments from them as to like, what exactly is going on here? What do I mean by rural traffic? You might pull out behind a big horse trailer, someone with a lot of horses in the back that's not wanting to slam those folks around, and so they're driving really slow. You might pull out behind somebody who are transporting cattle from one place to another for a different cattle lease, and they're going slow because they got animals back there. You might pull out behind a farmer or even just a small rancher with a lot of hay on deck on their pickup truck, kind of propped up precariously, and they don't want to be hanging the turns with all that hay on there, so they're going slow. You might come around the corner, as happened to me just the other day, taking my kids to go for a hike, and find there's a bunch of goats loose in the middle of the highway, right? The highways out there being Highway 49 and Highway 193, 2-lane rural highways, but now you got a bunch of goats running around. Everybody throws on their hazards and pulls off the side of the road and gets out and helps a guy wrangle his goats back in. We lost a half an hour trying to get these goats back off of the road. You might just get stuck behind a tourist in a Winnebago that doesn't know how to drive these curvy, windy backcountry roads, and you're tearing your hair out stuck behind this guy. The other day, just to meet a client driving from Placerville down to Coloma and Lotus, which is on the way to Cool, it's normally a 15 to 20 minute drive. Between a PG&E delay and a farmer with a huge load of hay on, it took me almost 40 minutes to do that 15 to 20 minute drive down to Coloma and Lotus. That's rural traffic. It's just part of life in the foothills, and you got to get to the point where you can take a deep breath, laugh, giggle, get out of the truck and help the guy get his goats back, and not have this be something that stresses you out. If that's something that's just going to stress you out or make your head explode, then living in Cool, California, or Coloma and Lotus, or any of these little rural towns might just not be for you. Con number 3 is that the flip side of Cool being kind of close to everything is that it's also far away from everything. It's kind of out in the middle. Like I said, 35 minutes to Highway 50 in Placerville, 17 minutes to Highway 80 in Auburn, right at the corner of Highway 49 and 193, and there's really nothing out there. There's the community infrastructure for Cool itself, but anything else you're going to need to do in your life, you're going the 17 minutes to Auburn and the 35 minutes to Placerville. So although it is centrally located and you can access all of that stuff, it comes at a cost, which is a lot of windshield time, a lot of time in the car. It also comes with a little added expense. Depending on what kind of car you have, you're going to spend a lot more in gas living out in Cool than you would in Placerville or in Auburn. So it's just something to think about. While it is centrally located, which is sort of convenient to everything, it also means it is as far away as it can be from everything as well. And so if you've got young kids and you're driving out to the schools and driving to soccer practices and having to run and commute to work and going all over the place, it might be the kind of place where you just spend more time in the car than you want, and that could be a deal breaker for your family. Con number 4 of living in Cool, California is fire insurance. And this really goes for all of our foothills communities, but Cool is going to be hit a little harder than some of the others. Now, if you live in California, you know this is a statewide problem. If you live in Ventura, which has sadly been ravaged by horrible fires the last few years, you know fire insurance is off the charts expensive there. If you live in the Oakland Hills, fire insurance is off the charts expensive there. Dorado County is no different. And because Cool is a rural place where properties are on more acreage and they're out in the country, it's going to be subject to higher fire insurance rates. So what does that mean in terms of dollars and cents? Well, if you're in some suburban area, you know, like Folsom, like San Jose, like some suburban parts of LA where they haven't been hit by some of the high fire severity zones, you're probably paying between $1,200 and $1,500 a year in your annual homeowners insurance premiums. Out in Cool, you're going to be a minimum of $5,000 to $6,000 a year to get homeowners insurance for anything. And if you're a bigger home on more acreage or further out, it's going to be easy to be over $10,000 a year in annual premiums for your homeowners insurance. Now, this adds a lot to your monthly mortgage payments, and it is something to consider when relocating here, and it may adjust the amount of home you look to purchase. You may qualify for a higher priced home, but you may choose to purchase a slightly lesser priced home to make some room in your payment for the cost of fire insurance out here. Either way, this is something when you're relocating from out of town you really need to know before you move here. And the first thing you should do for any home you're interested in purchasing in the area is get a homeowner's insurance quote right away, even before writing an offer. And your realtor, like myself, can help you do that. But you gotta know, no matter how you slice it, homeowners insurance is expensive in cool California. Con number 5, and the last con on our list today, is school options. Not saying the schools are bad in Cool. The schools are actually really good out in school. But you've got Northside School for your middle school, and you've got Golden Sierra up in Garden Valley for your high school, and that's about it, unless you select a school of choice, private school or charter school in Auburn or Placerville. But right out there, you really only have one school option for each grade level you're at. Now, if you're fine with just taking the public school option that's available to you in your little small town, like I say, these are good schools and you probably will have a great experience. However, if you're the type of family that really wants to have a lot of school options, more diverse school options, more alternative school options, there's no way to sugarcoat it that those just aren't available in cool California. It's too small of a place for that. We do have a thriving homeschool community all over the foothills, and Cool is no exception. So you will find great support for homeschooling and lots of pods available to socialize your homeschool kids if you go that route. But if the kids are leaving the house for school, you've really got the one local option for each grade level out there in Cool. All right, that wraps up our discussion of the pros and cons of living in cool California. And it is a great little town with an awesome name. And I hope this information has helped you decide whether Cool is right for your family or not. But maybe you want to look at some of the other towns right nearby. You can check out the pros and cons of living in Coloma and Lotus in this video up here. Maybe you want to see this general area compared to closer into town on the highway like Placerville. You can click this video, which compares Coloma and Lotus to Placerville. Or maybe you want to check out some of our other foothills towns to see if they're right for you. You can click this playlist down here for our other pros and cons videos. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for making it to the end with me, and I'll see you on the next one.